by the nephew of Sigmund Freud, and his name is Edward Barney. So in 1928, when this book was written, most people didn't understand human psychology. One man who did understand it was none other than Sigmund Freud. Do you know who was Sigmund Freud? You have probably heard his name before.
Yes,
Father
father
of
of psychology.
psychology.
Yes. Anything else you want to add on? No. So Freud was the creator of modern psychology. His ideas about people's deepest motivations, fears, desires actually shook the world, and it still echoes today. Many people just go back to the thoughts of Sigmund Freud. And guess what? This book is authored by Sigmund Freud's
Ma'am,
nephew.
ma'am, a lot of people can't see the screen. Me as well.
You as well. Should I just stop sharing and share it again? I'll try
Yes,
that.
ma'am.
Is it? So, is it visible to most of you now? All of you, I hope.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
सबको दिख रही
Yes,
है?
ma'am.
कोई ऐसा इसको नहीं दिखाई दे रही है? चलो, good. So, मैं क्या बता रही थी आपको? Hmm, आपको क्या दिख रहा है स्क्रीन पे? आप मुझे कुछ नहीं दिख रहा है आज. आज जब मैं आप लोगों को दिखा रही हूँ तो मुझे स्क्रीन नहीं दिखाई दे रही है. प्रोपेगेंडा की बुक दिखाई दे रही है आप लोगों को ना?
Yes,
Yes,
ma'am.
yes, ma'am.
Edward Barney.
से था वही दिखा रही थी मैं आपको. ठीक है, क्योंकि मुझे नहीं दिखाई दे रहा है ऐसा माउस स्क्रीन. इट्स ओके. So, Edward Barney took his uncle Sigmund Freud's deep understanding of human nature and used it in a practical ground. So Edward Barney is now known as the father of anyone who knows that?
PR.
Propaganda.
Father
PR.
of
Sorry, PR, yeah.
propaganda.
Public relations.
No, the father
PR.
of public relations. So he is known as father of public relations. And is about creating understanding between, he worked on creating understanding between public and an idea, group, or business. So today, we all know that large companies have or big companies have a PR department. We know that even political fight, a war of propaganda in every elections nowadays. American elections are going on, so there's a war of propaganda going on there. And today, we will try to see about the hidden secrets of propaganda and public relations. In last class, we talked about propaganda and advertising. Today, we'll look into it from a perspective of public relations. So when you hear the word propaganda, you are very much sure. I know कि आपको समझ में आ गया होगा कि हम लोगों ने बात करनी शुरू की थी वर्ल्ड वॉर 2 से. हमने नाजीज के बारे में बात की थी and how he wanted to spread the idea that Jewish people were inferior and parasites on society. So they designated they designed posters that presented Jewish people as sneaky and rat, like a sick-looking banker or something like that. So this is how Hitler did his propaganda. And on the other hand, other posters show an ideal person in the eyes of Nazis. So Hitler called the Aryans as a superior race, as a master race. But it wasn't just the Nazis who used propaganda. The communists in Russia and fascists in Italy were using it too. And we have discussed about it in detail. So, but Edward Burney defined public relations as an organized effort to create understanding between public and some business idea or group. But all the elements which he took were from propaganda. So we can say that the mother of public relations is propaganda, and propaganda is about creating images in the minds of millions of people at the same time. And how do you do that? Well, first, you must deeply understand how people work. How people work. So, mass reactions. If human reactions can be predicted, they can be manipulated, is what was written in the book by by Barnum. People's reactions and emotions are actually often predictable. This means if you put the right stimulus in front of millions of people, most of them will have the same reaction. For example, most of the people are disgusted by rats and cockroaches and bugs. They always have been, and they probably always will be. And it's just built into our biology. Rats and bugs carry diseases, so we need to stay away from them. And this also means that people will automatically feel disgusted if they see an image of a rat or a bug in propaganda. And the Nazis used these images very effectively. They painted Jews besides rats, or Jews as rats. And in his speeches, Hitler was talking about Jewish people. He always used uh, words related to bugs or parasites or pests, because these words are associated with the feeling of disgust. People usually hate snakes, so we are afraid of them and want to get rid of them. So whenever there is a feeling, अरे ये तो बिल्कुल सांप जैसा बिहेवियर है इसका, तो आपको लगेगा कुछ खतरनाक बिहेवियर ही होगा. And that's why snakes are used so often to represent the enemy. Even in the Bible, the ultimate enemy, Satan, shows up a snake. What I mean to say is, if you want to produce a mass reactions in people's mind, then you must take advantage of their existing emotional habits and mental cliches. And if you want people to see someone as powerful, strong, and visionary, then you use a symbol people already associate with those qualities, like a lion, singham, like an eagle, right? So अपने आप अगर आप इस तरह की सिमिली देंगे तो लोग उस चीज को उसी से एसोसिएट करेंगे. And then there is something called the invisible government. And what is this invisible government? The democracy is a strange new invention. Think about it. Anybody and everybody can decide how to manage the country. Doesn't it seem strange that millions of people who have never opened an economic book will decide how to manage the economy? And the fact is, every country is a machine that is too complicated for the average person to understand. The average person simply doesn't have time to study economic or political and ethical issues in depth. So, so we need someone else. Sorry, I missed my thoughts. What was I saying? I was just saying that it's not necessary that everybody is economics or political science students. So we need someone else to highlight the most important issues for us. This makes the voting decision much easier. This psychology exactly is followed by Edward Barney, and he calls the people who bring issues to the public attention, and he called it as the invisible government. And he uses similar kind of things when he was promoting his products as well. ओके, ये सब हम लोग कर चुके हैं, इनकी जरूरत नहीं है. हमने बात की थी द टॉर्च ऑफ फ्रीडम के बारे में. So in our previous class, we saw that how Edward Barney used cigarettes as a prop for women empowerment and named it as torch of freedom. So is it only advertising? Is it only advertising? Usually when we saw the difference between advertising and propaganda, we said that in advertising, the aim is to sell the product, and the aim is also to promote the brand. उनका है कि बस brand promote करो, ये बहुत अच्छा है, आप इसको लीजिए और इसको इस्तेमाल कीजिए. But Bernie's first major triumph in the field of advertising was the campaign to persuade women to smoke, because 50% of the population was not smoking. That those are women because of socio cultural background, because it was not found decent for a woman to go out and smoke. So at the time in 1920s, there was a taboo against women smoking. So Bernie's cleverly associated women smoking with a campaign for votes for women, and he propagated this idea. What he did, he hired a few women, and during the Easter March, he asked them to carry. He paid them to carry the cigarette there in the march, and when during this march, he was aware that the media will be there with the cameras and the photographers there. He asked them, when the cameras are on you, just light up the match and say, "This is our torch of freedom." And soon the campaign began. This is the torch of freedom. He was not saying that Lucky Strike is the torch of freedom. No. But all these women were carrying Lucky Strike cigarettes. So this is the subtle way in which he did a public relations or propaganda is what is happening. So since 1920, when Barney's techniques were still called propaganda, opinion manipulation has gone from strength to strength. Nazis excelled at such matters so well, in fact, that they brought the word into disrepute, and Barney's had come up with a new term called public relations to replace propaganda. So these are some other images of Lucky Strike propaganda, public relations. And he said that PR must create news in order to appeal to the instincts and fundamental emotions of the public. Light a lucky, and you will never miss sweets that make you fat. So in the campaign, he also said that if you smoke, you will never get fat, and the woman always had fear to get fat. The torches of freedom is what. So this is about Bertha Hunt. On 31st March 1929, at the height of Easter parade, a young woman named Bertha Hunt stepped out into the crowd at Fifth Avenue and created a scandal by lighting a Lucky Strike cigarette. The incident was highlighted even more because the press had been informed in advance of Hunt's course of action and had been provided with appropriate leaflets and pamphlets. जैसे ये चीजें हुई, आपने leaflets बांटने शुरू कर दिया, उसको promote करना शुरू कर दिया. So Barney's proclaimed that smoking was a form of liberation for women, and their chances to express their newfound strength and freedom is with this Lucky Strike cigarette. And he did not stop there. There might be many women who considered it as a torch for freedom, but there were other sets of women who wanted sexual liberation as a form of control, right? So he hit upon them as well. And the films which we saw, the ad films which we saw in our previous class, actually showed this, that they are in the swimsuit or swimming, and then they want their sexual liberations, and they are using this cigarette. And because of all this, the sale doubled from 1923 to 1929. Paul Mazur A Wall Street banker working for Lehman Brothers in 1930s said, we must shift America from a needs of a desires culture. People must be trained to desire, to want new things, even before the old have been entirely consumed. Man's desire must overshadow his needs. Man's desires must overshadow his needs. So this is the guru mantra of marketing. If you want, if you want your products to sell, then they should go beyond their needs, because our basic needs are very less. I do not need a mehenga phone. I do not need a particular brand of phone. Or maybe I do not want my phone to change after every 2, 3, 4 years, because it might work well. But I do change it because I desire, there's a desire in me and a want in me to change it. And this keeps the sale on. Bernie's, with his Freudian connections, linked sex to marketing. And soon, American car ads showed couples enjoying almost orgasmic delight over their new car purchases. So this is how he interpreted things. Okay, this. What also happened was that Barney talked about something called another campaign. So what the staple breakfast of America in today's world is bacon and eggs. But it was not there since so long. Their staple breakfast used to be black coffee with toast. And bacons were considered to be were meant for lunch and dinners. And what happened then? This bacon company went to Barney and they said, okay, I want to increase our sale. That's it. We want to increase our sale. So he thought, okay, already लोग lunch और dinner में तो खा ही रहे हैं, इसकी sale बढ़ानी है, तो क्या करना है? हमें इसको breakfast के लिए staple diet बनाना है. अब वो breakfast के लिए staple diet कैसे बने? इन्होंने क्या किया? एक अगेन साइकोलॉजिस्ट के पास गए, उनसे बात डिस्कस की और उन्होंने कहा कि भाई आपको अगर आपने कोई अब क्या किया जाए, कहते हैं जब तक लोगों को ये ना लगे, मैन इज एन एनिमल एंड एनिमल्स फील दैट they do not consume anything unless they think we need it. अगर किसी भी एनिमल को आपसे पसंद है कोई चीज, इसलिए वो उस चीज को कंज्यूम नहीं करते, they go by the vibe of need. So you need to make it very clear to man as an animal to feel that they need bacon and eggs for their breakfast. They need it. You have to create that need in them. और अब क्या हुआ? तो बहुत रिसर्च की और सब देखा गया. So there was one article in some journal which talked about how during night when we sleep, the body loses out a lot of energy. And because we lose out that much energy, we must have heavy breakfast in the morning, which must have tak ये प्रोटीन होना चाहिए, कार्बोहाइड्रेट, जो भी चीजें हैं, ये सब चीजें होनी चाहिए. So Barney took control of that particular research and went to that person who did this research and talked to him and said, उसने बताया ये चीजें होनी चाहिए. And he said, do you mean something like bacon and eggs? And the person said, yeah, of course. So, and this thing happened in a press conference. This conversation happened in a press conference, and the very next day, the newspapers were asked to, or they did automatically, that the idea which was promoted was bacon and eggs, a perfect and nutritious breakfast for Americans. We must have bacon and breads for a for an energetic day. All these things came up, and the sale of bacon and breads went. Bacon and eggs grew up, and the propaganda or public relations or the idea, the psychological thing behind that grew. And he never said in his ads, "Oh, the bacon is so tasty, and I must consume bacon." Usually the advertisements to say so कि ये तो इतना tasty है, इतना juicy है, इतना ये है वो है, इसलिए इसको लो. नहीं तो पूरा गेम ही चेंज कर दिया. उसने लोगों की साइकोलॉजी के साथ खेला. And the people were very naive at that time. They were not exposed to human psychology, and they were not exposed to the understanding that human psychology can be clubbed with advertisements or public relations. Right. So I have one interesting video, which the link of which I am sharing with you in the chat section. You must watch that, and you will have a better understanding about how Edward Bernays worked and how it is relevant in today's era as well.